Hey guys, this is Ben Jones. I've got some big updates for you on PiKiln. For those of you who don't know, PiKiln is the open source web-based kiln controller that I'm programming that runs on one of these, a Raspberry Pi. So the big updates are on heating zones and temperature probes. So let's just dive right in and take a look. All right, before we get started, I want to give a quick update of where we are. So this is PiKiln. This is a web page that I'm accessing on my computer. I can also do it on my phone. I could also access the same web page on a touchscreen on the Raspberry Pi itself. So, if you're worried about a network connection, you could still do it directly on the Raspberry Pi without any sort of internet connection, and it would all still work, except for the email, which it needs to reach out to the web to be able to do. So this is the home page. You can select a firing schedule. It'll show you the name of the schedule, the rate, the target temperature, the hold time, all the different segments that go into that schedule, the estimated time of how long it will take. It will also show cost of a firing schedule, but it will only show you the cost after that firing schedule has been completed on your kiln. One of the tricky things about building a kiln controller like this is I don't know what type of kiln it's going to be hooked up to, so it's hard to estimate ahead of time how much that's going to cost, because I don't know how efficient, how well insulated, all that sort of stuff. So what this will do is it'll just, it'll keep track of what the cost was the last time this schedule was fired and show you that. So I'm just going to click Start Schedule. So this highlights the current schedule, and it'll tell you how much time is remaining. So in this case, 5 hours and 49 minutes. And this is a progress bar that will fill in as time goes by. I'm not going to wait for this to complete. We're going to take a look at some other stuff. So let's stop the schedule. And let's take a look at edit firing schedules. So in edit firing schedule, you can create a new one. You can duplicate an existing firing schedule. You can import someone else's firing schedule, or you can export your own if you want to share it. So I'm just going to select that firing schedule that we just looked at a minute ago. You can move things around. You can delete segments. You can add more segments to it. You can save it. There's a little cone chart down here, so you can do a quick reference if you're not sure what temperature things are. And you can delete schedules as well. So then we're going to take a look at logging. So logging will show you what the scheduled temperature should have been at whatever time, and what the actual temperature was. And I stopped the schedule early, so there's nothing really here to see, but this would be a line graph, so you could see what it was supposed to be, what it actually was, and kind of compare the two. This also shows you the totals, so how many total firings you've done, how many hours worth of, hours and minutes of firing time you've done, and the total cost of running your kiln. So then I'm going to take a look at this one. So settings, this is where the majority of the changes have been. So we've got the kiln voltage, the cost per kilowatt. You can enter an email address in here if you want to get notifications of when your firing schedules have completed, or if you've gotten any errors or warnings from your kiln. Temperature settings. So we have Fahrenheit and Celsius, so whichever you prefer. There's a max temperature, so this will shut off the kiln if you hit this temperature or exceed it. It's just a little safety thing in there. So this is where I've been working a lot right now. We have kiln heating zones and temperatures. So this is just referring to how many heating zones you have in your kiln. So right now this only has one heating zone and one temperature sensor. But if I had 2 heating zones or 3 heating zones, I could do that and add that in there. If I had multiple temperature sensors, I could add those as well. And then down below, we have some adjustments. So a lot of the times, you might have one temperature probe, but then multiple heating zones. What usually happens is the top and bottom zones are a little bit cooler, so you can adjust the zones to heat them longer. So like this is 120%. So, for every second that the middle zone is heated, the top and bottom will be heated for, 1.2 seconds. And then over here, we have the sensor adjustment. So sometimes thermocouples will be off by a few degrees. And so this just gives you a way to kind of calibrate them. So they're all, really close to being the correct temperature. So, if you had multiple in here and, maybe your first thermocouple is, 5 degrees too cool, you can raise it up 5 degrees. And your other one might be, 2 degrees too warm, you can lower it 2 degrees. So it just gives you a way to kind of calibrate things. So I'm just going to reduce this to 2, 1. You can ignore this thermocouple offset right here. That's going away. Let me just show you one more thing real quick. So if I hit save, and I have 2 temperature sensors now. Now at the top right here, we have the average temperature of the kiln, and then we have the individual temperatures of either, of those 2 thermocouples. So you can see those there. And then down here in the experimental section, one of the things that I want to be able to do is give people the ability to, do things beyond just the normal, here's a kiln with these heating zones and these temperatures. Some kilns have, vent blowers. If you want to do custom stuff, this is where that functionality would live. So I'm still playing around with it. It's not quite implemented. But what I'm thinking of doing is having kind of some preset things that you can enable, and then you can pick which input-output pins on the Raspberry Pi you want to use for that. So that's pretty much all of the updates to the front end and web page of PiKiln. Let's take a look at the circuit board and some of the things I've been doing with that. So this is the current updated circuit board, and I've gotten some feedback from some local artists in Cleveland that do ceramics, and got a few suggestions. One thing that was suggested was adding a buzzer and also some visual notification. So this is like a continuous buzzer sound that will go off when your firing schedule is completed. I'm also going to probably play around with it for warnings or errors as well, maybe beep it a few times or something. And then the same thing with this LED. So this is an LED that will be on the outside of the kiln. You'll be able to see it light up. Just a way to give you a visual and audio notification of when it's done without having to look at your phone or computer to see the status of it. Let's see here. What else do we got? We have a bunch of transistors. So in the last video, I talked about how I wasn't having any issue driving the solid state relays, and that people online, were suggesting adding transistors. I wasn't running into that before because I didn't have all of these different, zones and temperature sensors. So when I added those in, I did the math and I was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to have enough current to power all of these things. So I added these transistors, so there's plenty of juice to power everything. So that's in there. And then I was also playing around with the temperature sensor modules. So right now I've been using the Adafruit Max 31856 thermocouple module, which works great and I love it. It's just a little bit expensive. So I kind of wanted to see, are there any cheaper generic modules out there? And I found one that looks like it's the same chip, but it's slightly different actually. It has a slightly different number on the chip itself. So I bought a few of these from China, and they're about half the price of the Adafruit ones. But I haven't really been able to get them to work quite right. They're either giving me temperatures of 0 degrees Celsius, which means that it's not working, or it's like negative 50 degrees, and it's like room temperature in here. I don't have any liquid nitrogen or anything like that. So that seemed wrong to me. Unless there's some other configuration to this or some sort of offset that I should be applying to things, I just haven't been very happy with these generic modules. If you guys know of any libraries that are out there for Python, for Raspberry Pi that will talk to one of these guys, I'd love to play with it. If I can bring down the cost of this whole system, that would be great, because 3 of these really adds up. So it would be great to get them to work. If they can't, then I'll just default to just having support for the Adafruit modules. So in addition to those changes, I also added a much nicer prototyping area and moved the auxiliary input-outputs up here. So in order to test out some of this new functionality, I'm going to have to make some upgrades to my test kiln. I need to get those multiple heating zones in there and those temperature sensors. If this is something you guys are interested in, I'd love to get your feedback on it. Leave me some comments down below, like the video if this is something that you're interested in, and subscribe for more. I also have a form in the description that you can enter in if you want to sign up for a early beta. I'll help you get set up and help you get some beta builds running on a Raspberry Pi, so you can get started playing around with it. I hope you guys are as excited about this project as I am. Lots more to come. This is going to be the coolest kiln controller out there. I know that actually sounds kind of lame, but it is. It's going to be the coolest kiln controller out there. All right. Until next time, guys. See you later.